We had an AGM, we had 3 of us there. I think Verna and Nicola Harwood, myself. Maybe you don't know what it was. That was a pretty low point. But I remember the optimism, the thing that really shone through was the community loves us.
Yeah.
That's what came through. And so we need to turn our whole orientation around and make it a community center and make the classes for the community and not accreditation and not academia. And then we found this space.
Yes, exactly.
We knew we needed a space to call home, and we actually envisioned something a little bit bigger. And here we are, many, many years later, in the same space. But it was just getting renovated again, curiously enough, by Liz Coho and Mark Davis, who are fantastic landlords again, and worked with us to create this space. And there is actually a door between this space and the other that they mudded in, so when we were ready to grow, we could blast it open. Wow. And we'd have a writing studio and an office, and this would be the mucky studio. But we moved in here, and right away, Nicola Harwood has to be mentioned here, because she started coming out to Rickaby's at our meetings, this new kind of bright spark from Vancouver, and coming back here and looking to get re-engaged in the arts. She had been a student at Deb Thompson University and loved Nelson, and so her energy came in there, and she was part of moving into this space. And when we moved into here, we realized that could be an exhibition space too. We hadn't really thought of that or had a room for that. And we all kind of wanted this idea of bringing outsiders in to stimulate us. So that was also a thought to make it a residency. So I remember coming in here one day, and I don't know if people remember, you probably, looking at all the audience, you all remember the green walls here. So it was a very green space, and they took a long time to get rid of the door there and the walls. But I remember walking in, the floor is kind of disgusting. And Nicola had made this big sign that said oxygen in big letters. And she had rebranded it in that moment. And we were about to launch into a whole new chapter. And we had our first exhibition, which was Brent Bukowski, as a sort of inaugural opening of the space and the new vision, really. And we have, stayed to this one space and kept affordable. And then Nicola really became the first director. And so instead of herding a bunch of cats, we had one personality. And Susan Inchgrace at that point was really largely instrumental too in doing things as well. But Nicola's personality took over, and also with her came performance, and that was a new part of the vision, because she was so passionate about performance. So she brought the whole performance community and the writing community as well came too. She's a writer. So her personality really shaped the early years of the Oxygen Arts Center. And it is an artist-run center. It's always really been an artist-run center. And now we call it an artist-run center, and it's one of the many in the country, but I think one of the few rural ones, and especially to survive. So it's that's sort of the switch over to here, and we didn't get to bring all that furniture with us. But I do want to introduce someone in the audience very quickly here. Is Hilder, who's sitting there, Johannesson, is to go with the Oxygen sign. We asked her, I don't know how, you must have taken a class. We got to know you, and she's a designer. She designed the logo, so she is behind the Oxygen logo. So that's still been a brilliant logo for us. Thank you. And I'm sure largely volunteered her time as well. So things really just happened, and it started happening in a new way, in a great way too. Does anyone want to address that transition? They have some memories from that time of letting go of the Nelson Fine Arts Center and moving into the Oxygen.
Yeah, I think, all of us kind of stepped in and stepped out during that phase. I mean, for different reasons, with our life and happenings and things. But I continued to teach at that point, and it was very exciting, the transition, I think. And I think it was, as was mentioned earlier, in huge part because of the support of the community and the love there is for the type of programming and education that was again being offered here. And during that time, there was still a huge amount of volunteering. And I think this volunteer spirit part is really important. And I think, just going back to the Nelson Fine Arts Center, that it started there was this concept that you can volunteer time and then you could take a class, or there was, a little bit of a benefit, and this partnership between students and instructors and the organization became really strong, and the partnership with the community. And I think that it's just built over time. And coming to the openings here and coming to some of the events here, you see the love that the community has for this space and the organisation and the programming. So I don't know who would want to take on from there. But
oh yeah, I was just going to say.
yeah.
So both? We just have a few minutes left, and then we're going to open to Q&A.
Yeah, I was just going to talk a little bit about artist-run centres in general. There are 60 in Canada that are continuously being funded, and so we're part of a group here. And basically they start, and I have to say, for moving to this building, it was a very nice feeling because it simplified everything. It wasn't like you had to worry about that overhead all the time. You just came and you taught and so on. Things got simpler by being an artist-run centre, which are usually started by a group of people who want to show somewhere, so you want to have a space. Or in writing, it would be that you have a space where you can, creative people to work together. You have a space you can share, you can help each other with this, and then you have different formats that you might have. You can have a setup where you ideally have some money that you can give to each artist as they do their exhibit, which has happened here for sure. And then you have classes at the same time. So there's all kinds of formats you can run. You can run a format where each artist pays a certain amount to rent that space for that time period they're going to have. That's what we did in the Cusp part-time, and we did in New Denver, but now in the Cusp it's not like that. New Denver, we still do it, it works. So yeah, there are all kinds of models that can be followed. And the earliest ones, of course, is First Nations people on the West Coast. Teaching through apprenticeship and so on. I don't like the division between arts and crafts, and I've argued that a lot, and at the time the division was happening at the school. To me, crafts are art, right? I don't see fine art and craft as a separation. They both are art, and if you look at the history, that comes from the history of art. It's you had an apprenticeship system with painting, you had that with carving, with sculpture and all. They really are not separate, and I found this argument at KSA very bogus in trying to say these are separate types of art. I just had to throw that in. But anyway, so the First Nations ones, they had, often it was within families, it could be within the village that they set up some kind of art center to help teach people. Then later, European immigrants. Then we have all this stuff here. Group of 7, group of 5, all kinds of groups. And within BC, there was the BC Arts League, BC Society of Fine Arts. The beginning of Emily Carr, that starts back in 1926 with a guy called Charles Scott, and he started it, put pressure on the city, and it's a group of artists. And then he got in Jock MacDonald and Fred Varley, and they were his key teachers, and later Shadbolt. And they all become famous later, but it starts very small, just a group of artists who really want to teach and get it out there. And and then even 2 of the artists formed what was called the BC College of Art, and I guess they didn't work too well, and it lasted 1 year, right? So, but there's all these things that can happen. And,
yes.
I mean, look at Oxygen. Here we are, 15 years later. It's amazing. And
yes.
Congratulate everyone for doing this.
So thank you, Bouk, thank you.
Yeah.
Just in wrapping this up, just looking at that poster wall there, which I'm facing, and we constantly get artists coming from far away who are here to do residencies and exhibitions and have only seen our website. And it's wonderful to bring them into the space because they can't figure out where the more is. Like there must be more. They want to look behind that wall that slides. Is there a room there? Is there something there? The presence that Oxygen has out there and the amount of that Oxygen puts out has a much bigger footprint than our actual physical footprint. So I want to say to date, in the last 14 years, that Oxygen has run over 200 courses, 38 exhibitions, 27 one-month-long residencies, and over 150 events. So thank you, Oxygen. And we'll now open it up to questions and answers. And thank you to our panel here. And so please, if you have a question.
There are questions, I'll just get you to hold the mic.
Okay. Anyone have a question?
Or comment?
Or comment, yes.
Memory? We're collecting them all.
I have a question.
I hope it doesn't reverb.
if it doesn't.
What's next? Like, what are the future plans?
Wow.
What are ambitions?
Yeah, Miriam, do you want to step in here? Miriam is really the vision and the director of the ship right now. You know, I think that the plan, we are large, when you leave, you can see the funding wall. We have now Canada Council funding us and BCR's Council. So we're well outside Nelson, we're getting funds from it. The exhibition and residency program is very popular and gaining more popularity from artists outside of here as well. We're getting applications from really all over the world. So I know that will continue.
61 applications.
Yes, 61 applications came in last year that we sorted through and slotted some. So we certainly don't want that to end. And things like the youth programs are really taking off, and the classes are almost all full. So I think continuing in the way we are and seemed to be working. We seem to be paying the rent and paying our instructors. The artists that come in here get CARFAC fees, which is a standard across the country that we try very hard to meet and even exceed that. You know, the faculty people are paid now. No one's teaching for free anymore. So that's kind of interesting. That's times have changed. Yeah.
I think that's a really important point, I think, about where we're at now and, you know, moving forward, is that thanks to Miriam being able to be being an amazing grant writer, and also, I'd say, visionary in terms of thinking where, you know, that absolutely you can get Canada Council funding for a tiny little artist-run centre in the, you know, middle of the Kootenays. You know, I think that's a pretty amazing achievement, and it has meant that people are now getting paid properly. You know, instructors, CARFAC fees are being paid to everybody that presents, and I think that's a big achievement, and you know, it just shows a level of professionalism that came from running by the seat of our pants to kind of looking at the bank account and wondering how much is there, to actually being a more stable organisation. And I think that's just grown over the years, but I think some really good, sound financial management has really helped in the last few years, which is wonderful.
Yeah, Miriam's done an excellent job with that. And you know, it's still very real. We still don't get grants that we need, and we still would like to pay people more, and it would be lovely to offer benefits, and on and on. So we're not in completely real time in the real world, but for the Artist Cultural Arrangement Centre, there's that but, right? And where we've come and how we're doing fantastic. But there's still more on that level that could be achieved. Yes.
Thanks. The history is amazing. There's a lot I didn't know. So I'm curious though, this is a kind of a small audience. Is there going to be something in the paper or something somewhere that a larger audience could be enlightened?
We're happy to have the co-op radio, maybe get some airtime there, and with Amy's videoing that we've archived this and will be now accessible. Miriam's got some grants out to do a lot of online archives, connect with the website. And we it's just the beginning, and depending on the grants coming in, it could get much bigger. So yes, absolutely. And then I think, you know, we don't even know where we're going in the future, because this is sort of a stopping point, and like sort of inventorying or taking stock. And I think it's a good taking a breath, taking stock, and it may energize us for a new branch. We might grow a new limb or something. I don't know.
Pretty exciting.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, sorry. I'll just say that Miriam's actually bringing the board together on Monday, just before we take this space apart. It's okay. And I think it's really important we know the history to know how to go forward, and there's actually a plan in the next few months to do a strategic planning kind of visioning session among the board. So that helps to kind of answer the question of like, yes, there is kind of a movement towards getting into a visioning process for the next 10 years. But I want to make all the board members that aren't here watch this. Because without knowing this history, which I've only heard pieces of over the last 10 years of moving here, it's going into the dark if you don't know where you've come from. So anyway, it's good. I'm done.
No, there's still many people, I'm sure you can all bump into people who've never been in oxygen and don't know anything about it, and especially the history. And there might be more people even now outside of Nelson that know more about oxygen.
And this particular history I felt was really missing from the archive because, well, a lot of people are still very engaged in the centre, but it's sort of, this is the foundations and it was sort of a little invisible. So this was part of the intention to do this because really, you know, it's one thing to come in and take over an organisation, to start it, to the society, the charitable, like to those foundations are huge and a big piece of work. So I wanted to make sure that we really did get that covered. So thank you all very much.
I wanted to say thank you to all of you. I think that most, if not all of us in here, owe a huge debt of gratitude to, you know, not only your blood, sweat, and tears, but as we learned today, your enthusiasm. When you could have turned to just tears, or grievances, or whatever the case may be, right? You know, that's a step, you know, a really commendable choice, a stellar choice.
Yeah, people just get knocked down and they come back up again.
Yeah. For those things. I wanted to just share a little comment. When we moved, Amy and I moved here in 2006, and shortly after we moved here, like within the first week, we stumbled upon coming here and seeing Hello, I Must Be Going, Bessie's plans, and it was this feeling of, oh my gosh, like I cannot even believe the quality of stuff that is happening in this small place that we've chosen to move to. And yes, this is absolutely, you know, the place where we want to be. And, you know, we had our little Toronto worries about, like, are we going to get engaged in culture in the same way that we had opportunities to there and never look back. So, you know, and that builds on itself. There's all this, there's enthusiasm that builds upon, and then more people come in the door to volunteer and to show up for exhibitions. And, you know, we're wondering about who else is going to come in the door. Well, you know, the 14-year-old who's babysitting in our house tonight was really excited that we were coming to Oxygen because she'd been here before and thought it was a really cool place. So that's good.
That's awesome. Yay. Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming. Do you have any other comments or
just maybe
perspectives?
to these people in this audience who have been so dedicated over the years.
Yes, thank you. And pass the word. Whatever you can pass on is
Think
fabulous.
of a phoenix rising from a dream.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone.